help business owners just like you get traction so that you can show up, be consistent in your messaging, and start to see the needle moving as you build authority and create this business. And or maybe if you've been in business for a while, you are looking for ideas and ways to refine your messaging so it reflects the business that you're building, not the business you wanted to build 5 years ago when you first created your website or any other information, but the business that you're building as we speak and the business that you want to build. We talked a lot about core values yesterday. And so what I think is so incredibly powerful about core values is they can drive your messaging, they can drive your differentiation, they can drive a ton of different things that allow you to set yourself up as an expert. But how do you show that expertise? We'll talk a ton about web copy, home pages, about pages, how to write a bio in the coming weeks. But if you're like so many of the people that I've spoken with over the past 6 weeks, since before Thanksgiving, I think, I'm going to speak to that subset because I can relate in a lot of ways, but I think a lot of prospecting went to crickets in like November, late November into December and through until about yesterday, because everyone that I have been speaking with has had this lull in their pipeline. And this is for one-on-one work. This is for done for you work, whether you own an agency, whether you have something else that's going on in your life, right? Or whether you're a freelancer, a done for you person where it is truly one-on-one. I've seen a lull for a lot of people. And I think this is going on for a couple of reasons, right? So reason number one is we are all, there's an article and I can't remember where I saw it and it's going to drive me crazy. And if I find it, I'll post it in the comments here. But we are all kind of in this period of complacency, and complacency really isn't like the right word. I think languishing is the right word. We've been in this new whatever for the last 2 years, and we're, kind of on that verge of like, what the heck is going on? I want to do things with my family. And so many of us did choose to do fun things in the fall before, current events hit and Omicron happened. And now we're kind of all in this phase like, all right, let's buckle down and get to work. So I think a lot of people have decided that one of their core values is time. And in their personal lives, that means that time is time with their loved ones, time spent intentionally. In their professional lives, that means giving their clients the sufficient amount of time that they need while also creating the space for rest in their own lives. And so that's one of the things that I've done. As I've said, I'm going to take off a week every month. In December, that turned into 2 weeks because of the holidays, because of my kids being out of school, because they deserve my time, right? So where I'm going with this, I totally lost my train of thought. Like I saw something shiny and sparkly outside. Like, how many of you does that happen to, right? Like all the time. So, where I'm going with this is that a lot of business owners and a lot of businesses and a lot of hiring professionals also took that time. They said, you know what? Time is more important. So as a result, if you are a freelancer, and I promise I'm circling back to this, see, we're here. If you're a freelancer of some kind, whether you are owning a business, whether you do work for hire, whatever this looks like for you, what I think happened is that people just said, you know what, I'm going to hold off on this decisions that I would normally make third quarter and late fourth quarter. I'm going to push that and kick the can down the road to January. Because so much has changed. Like all the seeds that have been planted over the last 6 weeks are coming to fruition, and they're coming to fruition fast. So if this sounds familiar for you, hopefully this is what's going to pay off. And I have a lesson for you. Just because you have no work does not mean that it's not time to double down on your marketing. And this is where turning your messaging into magic comes in. And if you don't have messaging, it's time to wave your magic wand and create it. And the way you do that is by showing up for your business, by showing up for your clients, even if you don't have a ton. Even if you are your own biggest client right now, there are tons of ways that you can leverage what you're doing for that client for you into getting new clients. So let's talk about that. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to build a 90-day plan. Maybe it's a 30-day plan. And I can teach you, if you're interested in information, I have a content workshop where it teaches you how to do 30 days of content planning in 1 hour, 12 months of content planning in 1 hour. So we have these great opportunities for you. And I'll pop that link into chat when we're done here. But the other thing that I want you to think about is, how are you showing up for yourself? What wins have you gotten? Let people in behind the scenes to show them what you're doing right now. What does lifestyle look like? What does your ideal lifestyle look like? What do you want to create? And start showing up and start showing how you are going to create that in this discussion. So what are we doing? We're using what we're doing right now to get more work. So this means case studies. And the word case study can be super intimidating. I'm working on one right now, and I will tell you about it in the process. I've done these for clients before, and I will tell you it is a heck of a lot easier to do them for clients than it is for yourself. But a case study doesn't have to be 14 pages. A case study can be incredibly basic. And you start with the basics, and then you slowly begin to flesh it out, right? So here's how it looks. You take the problem. What is the problem? Okay. And I'll give you an example in the one that I'm creating right now. The problem was that my client is an amazing accounting professional. She has won awards. She has gone on to do big, ginormous things, but marketing isn't her thing. Just like accounting isn't mine. Like, accounting math feels so different to me from normal math because of all the things that have to happen that I turn it over to a bookkeeper, right? So she can navigate the ins and the outs of that with zero issue, zero holds barred. She's like, looks at something and she gets it, and she figures out where the problems are, and then she puts together the puzzle. Marketing, she's like, I know I need to do it, and I love what you're doing for me, but I can't do it for myself. And so I think that's true for a lot of us. So what does that look like? So she came to me, I created her website copy. And then she's like, okay, so how do I use this? Because she also got this really cool brand messaging guide. And I'm like, well, here's how you do this. Here's a schedule that I'm going to create for you. And she's like, I'm never going to do this. Why don't you do it for me? And the conversation took place over the course of a couple months, but that's it in a nutshell. So let's discuss what this looks like. So this is my case study. And I'm like, okay, what had she tried? What wasn't working? What were her goals? This is the current situation, the place that you start. Right? So what does that look like? Paint that picture. Maybe it's one sentence, maybe it's a bunch of words, maybe it's some bullet points, not a problem, right? So then we're going to continue on with that. And in this case, she's actually looking to break into a new industry, which she has done extremely successfully as a result of what we've done together. She had no content. So we're set to work on creating a bank of content and sharing it for her. This is the same thing I'm going to guide you to do, right? Over the next year, this is the same thing that you can do if you follow this process. But in terms of writing the case study, it's simple. This was the problem. The approach was my reach visibility trajectory, which was not yet named, incidentally. I've named it as a result sort of our work together. So then we take it to the next level. Why did we take this approach? What were all the details of the approach? Right? You can do this. You can do this. This is your work. This is what you do for clients. This is how you explain yourself to them every danged day, which is amazing, right? You can do it. So you've got the current situation, or the situation before you started work. You have your approach, how you tackled it, and then you have the results. I can tell you that she's gained 5 figures in monthly recurring revenue as a result of this new monthly recurring revenue. I can tell you that she has broken into new audiences, gotten all kinds of referrals, set herself up as an expert, both with her prospective clients as well as with her peers who maybe don't want to take on this type of client for whatever reason. It's not in their wheelhouse. It's not their expertise. It's not something that they want to do. Cool. We all have those. Like if someone comes to me for, I don't know, social media management, that's not what I do. I can bring it into part of the reach visibility trajectory if I have a client that's doing all the other things. But as a rule, this isn't what I do. I don't do social media ads. So I have people that I refer people to, right? So it's going to be the same thing in your own business. If you are a web designer and you don't want to touch copy, you might hire me, or you might refer people to me, and vice versa. I might refer people to you because let me tell you what, no one wants me to design anything, right? No one. It's just not done. Like my designs tend to be, sorry about that. They tend to be stick figures because that's about the capacity. Or I'll obsess over something for like 6 hours and my VA can whip it out in like 10 minutes or less. And it's like, cool. So that's done. So all that like soliloquy aside, she's gained those referrals. And so we've taken a multifaceted approach. We've taken content creation. We've taken social media with content buckets. We have taken the planning and the writing of all of that. We have created direct mail pieces for her. We've added pages to her website that position her as this expert. We've gotten her published in other publications. And above and beyond that, we've, again, she's gotten these 5 figures of monthly recurring revenue, new business. And she just messaged me. We did direct mail too, because, it's funny. I'm in the online world. We're all in the online world. That's why we're here. So, and I'll get back to the case study. I totally promise. But so this is the results. The results speak for themselves. They show that this is working. So you're doing all kinds of things that are working for you, for your clients. So it's time to be talking about those results. That is messaging magic, because people want what other people have. People want success that other people have. So if you can show that you have gotten people success, even if it's you, maybe you're starting out and you're like, how the heck do I use what I'm doing to get more business if I don't even have business yet? No problem. You start building the buzz. You start talking about things that you're learning. You start sharing content that you're reading. You build that mailing list, even if there are 2 people on it, right? Even if they're your parents or your best friend or your sister, because that is what will lead to your success. Showing up, getting visible, offering valuable feedback. So let's go back to the case study. So it has 3 main components. It has the situation before you start working, whether it's your situation, whether it's your client's situation. It has your approach, which allows you to take on some insanely cool things, right? And thirdly, it has the results. That's it. That's all that goes into a case study. And so I have some tools out there. I'll also pop them into chat that show you how to use the business that you're currently getting to get more business, the actions that you're currently taking. So, for example, I have this case study that I'm working on. And again, yours doesn't have to be 14 pages. Yours doesn't have to take you 10 hours to write. If you cut it down to the basics and do super short form, like, hey, so the other day, so here's an example of what that post looks like if you're creating social media or blog. The headline shows what's possible, right? So you can get, this might be an example if I'm writing this for this client, you can get 5 figures of monthly recurring revenue with a visibility campaign. Plain and simple, right? I mean, and she had to do the sales work. It wasn't like they're just like, here, take my money, hire me. There is some work, but we got those leads to her so that she could close them, so that she could start working it. So you can have this. My client, whose name I will mention once I have the final case study written and she's signed off on it, just did this. And here's why she hired me. Here's what we've done, and here are her results. They speak for themselves. So that's like insanely cool, right? Like all the things that you can be doing. So where do you post this stuff? Everywhere that your ideal audience hangs out. And if you don't know, take a guess or start asking people like, hey, you're in my ideal audience. Where do you consume content? Is it Facebook? Is it Instagram? Is it LinkedIn? Is it TikTok? Is it Snapchat? Is it any of these other things? And my audience, I can tell you, hangs out on LinkedIn and Twitter um, for the done for you. For my teaching audience, which is Womp Womp 12, they hang out more on Facebook groups and in Instagram. So, there's going to be some figuring. And so you have to then choose where you want to be. So if you really want to be in Facebook groups, be in Facebook groups. If you really want to be on LinkedIn, you don't want to touch the other places, that's fine. Own it. And then you can choose it and then you can lay into that. So you're posting there. So how often do you post? How often you post is important to talk about, right? It needs to be consistent. Whatever you pick, you need to just be able to show up at least that much. So if you can only commit to once a week, be sure to do it once a week and then spend as much time as you can engaging on other people's posts. If you can post 5 days a week and still spend 5 days a week, not whole days, obviously, but at least 15 minutes a day engaging with your target audience's posts, commenting on their stuff, building this network, you are going to see results, right? So what if you only have one case study? No big deal. Post that, repurpose some of that content, obviously change it up, but repurpose the idea behind that content once a week, maybe. And then be sharing articles that you find that are super relevant. Hey, I'm going to start learning from this. Oh my gosh, I read this book the other day. Here's one of my biggest takeaways. I've been reading this book for a month. Here's my takeaway from today. Here is why this is so flipping awesome. Here is why we love this. Be sharing tips that you find. Hey, by the way, did you know this? This blew my mind. All the things, right? All the things that make you stand out. Because people will take notice. And I think that the last thing to think about here is, even if you don't see traction right away from it. I mean, if you do one post and you get 6 leads coming in, power to you. I want to know what you're doing. Please come find me. Because it's certainly possible. My first week on Twitter, for example, I had a lead that I was one of the finalists where I didn't end up closing it, but I was like, well, heck, maybe I need to spend more time on Twitter. And I've still since gotten quite a few leads off of Twitter, which is really kind of cool. But, so it can happen, but it's probably not going to. It takes work, it takes consistency, it takes showing up, and it takes building that network. So use what you're doing, talk about it, because if you don't build it in public, no one will ever know what you're doing. You'll know, your clients will know, but how will you ever get in front of new clients if you're not using what you're currently doing to build that revenue, those leads, to foster them, to nurture them, to give them the warm fuzzies? And so we also will need to talk about at some point, not today, we will also need to cover how do you nurture leads? How can you create an automatic nurturing system so that you don't have to stay on top of it? Because that's where the wheel falls off the wagon. You send a pitch out, you forget about it. Hey, it's me. How do you continue nurturing them? And some of it is building this bank of content, building these use cases, these case studies. So you can just occasionally drip out hey, by the way, got an email for you that you might find interesting and relevant. So this is all stuff that we can talk about later. But again, the whole point of this conversation here is to show you how to create a use case or a case study out of what you're doing, and how to use that to get more business. And again, this doesn't have to be this long drawn out piece that's designed beautifully, set up as this gorgeous thing. All it has to be is something that shows what's possible and shows the work that you're doing. It's your opportunity to stand out. Lastly, I want to talk about one more thing, and then we're going to close out for the day because I think this is so important. What is the difference between a case study and a use case? A case study delivers very real results. Very real results. It usually names a client, although it doesn't always. Whereas a use case doesn't name the client. It may or may not have very real results. It may have potential results. So if you don't have a client yet, or if you haven't seen those results, no big deal. What is the possible outcome of working together? You can have this one thing, even if you don't know how to do it yet. You can have, I might tell you, you can have a website that works for you 24/7, even if you don't know how to get started. That's actually one of my lead magnets, right? That's my biggest one. So what about you can get 10 figures of monthly recurring revenue even if you are at ground zero. That would be a powerful headline, right? And then we can talk about all the things. Here's how we've done it before, or here's how we'd approach this problem. Like basically, a use case solves for potential problems, where a case study solves for actual problems that you've solved, and shows how you did it. Hit me up if you have questions. As I said, I'm going to pop a couple of links into the chat. Namely, I'm going to start with the how to turn what you're doing right now into actual business. And I totally forgot what the other one was. I'll come back and watch this and drop it in. Thank you so much. Let me know if you have any questions. And I forgot I was charging my mouse. So here we go.